ladies and gentlemen. We are here live, another Facebook Live with real estate extraordinaire Ofir Barashy. Welcome. There we go. Yay. All right. All right, Ofir, tell them a little about yourself, how long you've been doing this wonderful thing, and we'll get into some other questions after that.
I've been in the business now for 4 years. Started out at a company called Marcus and Millichap that specialized in investment sales. Went through the gauntlet, doing a ton of cold calls and going through the boot camp there, and then joined Berkshire Hathaway about I think 3 years ago now,
Yeah.
and started the Barashy Group this way, other way, and joined forces with my pops, who's been in the business for 30 plus years, and really kind of utilize him as a mentor and as a guide. He's my encyclopedia, essentially, to be able to, provide my clients with the best possible service. So nowadays we have ChatGPT. Before ChatGPT, I had Sean Barashy, and I still sometimes default to Sean Barashy over
I
ChatGPT for the
would.
most part. Yeah. Experience tells you a lot more than what AI may be able to. And so now, we've had very successful 4 years in the business. I think I was telling you right before we hopped on live that the momentum hasn't stopped for me. In fact, it's really only sped up, which is a blessing. I know that that's not been the case across the board for everyone. I know that it's been a very challenging year on the commercial real estate side, and it has been even for myself. It's just that all of a sudden momentum has started to increase. So,
That's fabulous. That's fabulous.
yeah.
That's give an idea of what you guys do too. You and your
Yeah.
father, or is like what areas of commercial you handle and all that good stuff.
So when we first started, we focused pretty heavily. He was very heavy on the industrial side. I was very heavy on the medical side. And just over time, you start to accumulate clients that have various needs and that want to work with us if we've done a good job for them. So they've taken us in various directions, right? Now we do office and retail and land. So we're pretty much in everything. The only thing we haven't really touched much of is multifamily. And prior to this call, I had one call from a client that says, "Hey, I'm looking to sell a future mixed use project that's going to have multifamily on top and office on the bottom." So that's going to be a very unique opportunity for me to try and explore and figure out how to evaluate that. But other than that, now we have our feet dipped into pretty much every asset class in commercial real estate. And so that's really it, right? Is we do commercial real estate as a whole.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. And with Vegas growing the way it is, and with the sports and everything coming here, I know that the market itself, the last few years, with the interest rates being as they may, and blah blah blah. But other than that, the area still have been has been growing pretty well, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'd say that momentum hasn't stopped too much in terms of certain asset classes, whereas other asset classes have seen quite a bit of a slowdown. So, for example, industrial. Okay, when you're talking about big box industrial, through COVID, you saw it blow up, right? E-commerce became the king, and so everyone wanted to get into these big box spaces with a ton of just four walls where you can store all your merchandise products that you can ship out, fulfill. And that has significantly slowed down now. The big boxes have slowed down, you know very much so, and the rates ticked up quite a bit through COVID, and now they're really coming down. And we're starting to see some vacancy and a lot of developments that have come in. A lot of the developers came in hot and heavy and developed a ton of industrial. So now we're starting to saturate the market with a lot of big industrial buildings as well. And then there's let's call it a moratorium on swamp coolers, on evaporative coolers. So now all new industrial development has to be done with HVAC units rather than evap coolers. And that changes the pricing quite a bit, and the cost, and the amount of power that's utilized instead of the water that's utilized. And so, there's a lot that's changed on that way. But the small bay industrial, ironically, think like, 1,000 square feet to even 10,000 square feet. Very, very, very hot right now. In fact, I've got 5 properties in North Las Vegas off of Rock Bottom, Rock Pebble, between Bruce and Gilmore, close to Cheyenne, and Uh, those are 5 buildings that are about 4 to 5,000 square feet industrial buildings. I put them on the market last week. I can't tell you how much activity I've had on them. So the point of that is to say that depending on the asset class, there's going to be a lot of activity or a little bit of activity. But even more important than that is if you have a good product, just in general, if your building is in good shape, if it's in a good location, if it's got trophy dirt, for example, is what one of my investors calls it, then it's always going to have opportunity. It's always going to be able to get new tenants in the building. You'll be able to compete for good pricing. And with these particular properties, we're able to raise the rents on the industrial market that's way above what the standard market rate is for that area. We're basically in an oasis in the middle of a desert. So, it really, really depends on how you position your product within your asset class, within your sub market to be able to get the most out of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And it is amazing how fast it moves right now, too, right? Industrial, commercial, like you were mentioning, the big box, with COVID, they needed the storage. I saw a bunch of those. They put up like in record time in North Las Vegas off the highway.
Exactly.
I was like, holy, it's like they brought in a neighborhood of buildings overnight and stood them up. Right. But then, like you said, when now everyone's back to work and doing it. So did they think that that was going to go on forever? I think a lot of people thought that that was the new thing, right? I'm going to work out of my house now and I'm going to buy everything delivered to my house.
Yeah, I mean, look at Office, for example. Office is still recovering. I think it's making a good comeback because I think that, now 5 years post COVID or 4 years, 3 years, however you want to decide when COVID really ended, now you're starting to see this shift of mentality of, okay, we tried this work from home thing. We saw that productivity was not at the same levels as when we were in the office, and everybody is unique, right? So there might be certain jobs where work from home works perfectly well and the productivity is just as good, if not a little bit better, because then you're saving some time on driving and whatnot. But the vast majority of the case for office, you can see companies saying, like, we're in the office right now, and it's so important for us to be physically here so that other agents that come in may see us and may be able to refer us business. Or if we want to meet up with clients, we're in a really central location, so it's easy for us to get to them and them to get to us. And in general, to be able to build a culture, you need to have people around you. You can't really build culture remotely, especially for smaller startup companies, for example. So you're
Right.
seeing this resurgence back to office. But what most likely won't fully recover is, I think we're probably always going to have some kind of element of hybrid workspace.
Yeah.
And maybe the hybrid will start to dwindle down, right? But for example, my wife works for a big company here in town, and before COVID, they were always work, from office. And then as soon as COVID kind of started to dwindle down, they had hybrid work where it was maybe a couple days a week at home. And now it's dwindled to just one day a week at home. And so there's going to be that kind of element where businesses have to figure out, how do we attract people back to the office and how do we keep them there and make it a good experience from them? And if not, then how can we utilize this hybrid workspace to still maximize efficiency while giving the employees what they want? And so that's really impacting the office commercial real estate space. What
Yeah.
it's not changing at all, though, is like a subset of office is medical office, right? Medical office always needs to be physically there. You can't just have, a chiropractor work from home. It has to be done at a physical location. Same thing with surgery or any other kind of medical use. So there are so many nuances to this business, Rick, which is what makes it so exciting. And every single day is so different. Every instance is different. Every building that we look at and analyze is completely different than the next. It's a really, really interesting time for real estate. And I think it's, in my opinion, become more of a broker's market than a seller's market or a buyer's market. It requires really skilled brokers to be able to put the deals together.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. And the residential market's like that too. We call it a normal market, right? It's where you compete.
Yep.
There's 4 months of inventory, which is a normal market. When people say to me, this is a buyer's market, I always go, oh, when did you get your license? Oh, 2020. Yeah, that's why it's a buyer's market to you, because you've never seen a real buyer's market.
That's
If you don't have your license prior to 2017 in residential, you don't know what a buyer's market looks like, because it was a buyer's market before that, and it has changed a lot. You said something that really, like, I think businesses are realizing that, as a gross generalization, people are more productive when they're working together, when they're in the same location, right?
for
Remember
sure.
when COVID first happened, people were saying, oh, no, no, we're going to stay working at home forever because studies show that we're more productive from home. And I was like, studies? It's been a year, right? So, you ever see those things on social media where it goes, based on a survey I made up? That's what it reminded me of. Yeah, we're more productive at home because we like being at home. The commute time is better. My PJs are comfortable all day. But from a productive standpoint, I don't think it compares, right?
Yeah, well, in one of the areas of commercial that made a surprising comeback was retail, because with the rise, I mean, not that it wasn't there before, but with the continual rise of e-commerce, the expectation was through COVID, oh, retail is dead now. We don't need to worry about it anymore. So everything needs to be focused on industrial spaces for storage and warehousing, fulfillment, distribution. And the irony was that retail made a very strong comeback. Once people started to recover from COVID, because people got sick of being at home. They got sick of being in the house. They wanted to go out. They wanted to shop. They wanted to touch and feel the products. And I still think that Amazon is king. Especially for my generation, for example. Almost everything that we buy now is from Amazon. We don't go to the stores that often, but there are still a lot of certain types of retailers that you can't just go to Amazon or buy something online. You have to go and feel it, and you have to go and try on the shoes. You have to go and buy the groceries from the store. Like, can you buy it online? Yes, you can. But for the most part, people are still, I think, going to a lot of those retailers. And so retail's made a very unique comeback as well, and has a pretty good um, uh, occupancy rate, a low vacancy rate in Vegas right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense too. People, like, I mean, we're social people, and like, if you're buying light bulbs or salt for your softener, or body wash or body lotion or hair gel, which I don't need, but
Yep.
I save money on that quite a bit. Then you'll go to Amazon and have it delivered, and if it's stuff you're familiar with, right? But the new stuff, you really want to go out and check it out. And so that's the great thing for your business is now it's all, really, everything is firing on all cylinders right now, right? Especially in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, again, based on the fact that it's more of a broker's market today, it can fire on all cylinders, but it has to be the right fit. And I think part of that is landlords finally starting to come off the high of COVID, thinking that they're going to get 2, 3, 4 offers on their space within a week or two of listing it online. It's not like that anymore. Now you're having to pull, right? The agents are having to make cold calls, or do open houses even for warehousing projects, which never really seen before. And so there's unique ways of marketing and unique ways of positioning yourself. And as the landlord, in a lot of cases, unless you have that kind of trophy asset that everybody wants, you have to be able to provide concessions or abatements or tenant improvements, something that's going to attract the tenant and keep them there for a long time. Right now, what we're seeing a shift from that is typically in the benefit for the tenant is, a few years ago, you couldn't argue with the landlord. It was a 5+ year lease. That's the deal, right? And that's what you were seeing a lot of transactions coming through as. Now the tenants have a little bit more negotiating power. They want to have a much lower lease term with a lot of options. And so from a landlord perspective, that's not as beneficial, because there's the concern of a lot of turnover. But
Right.
right now, that's why, from a broker's perspective, you have to be able to put a deal together to show the tenant that, look, a year or two flies by like that. You're not going to want to have to move again in a couple of years. You want to try to lock in a space for as long as you can. But you can see a lot of these startups, they don't have the business acumen or the experience to commit to long term. So there's just a lot of different types of negotiations that are happening now in order to make the deal happen. So it's a lot of work on the broker side, that's for sure. And that's, I think,
Yeah.
partly why I'm so busy right now, is not even that it's just a ton of deals, but just a ton of work on those deals.
Yeah, and that's why you're busy, because you're good at it. You're saying the right stuff. You're saying, it's a salesperson's market. It's a broker's market. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know, like today in residential, you have a nice product at the right price. It's going to sell. You want top dollar, or you're going to wait. You're going to wait 4 or 5 months, and probably have to do 3 price reductions and end up taking less in the long run. I'm sure you have the same thing, but as a broker, tell us what that means. So, in order to be a good or great commercial broker in today's market, give us the top 3 things. What would you say that someone really needs to be good at or work on? Or
So that's a great question, and I look at this in a variety of different ways. So my first piece of advice may be to the newer agents, right? The guys that don't have the knowledge or the expertise or the experience yet. How can you be a good broker? It's all about communication. A lot of agents don't pick up their phone when they're called. I mean, that's already an advantage. So I think this is with everything in life, Rick, but for especially new agents, you have to control your controllables. You have to be able to make the calls every day. You have to be able to set the meetings. You have to be able to attend the meetings and answer the phone calls. You have to be able to go to sleep on time consistently, wake up on time consistently, have discipline. Essentially, those are the things that you can control within yourself. You can't control if someone's going to pick up the phone on the other end. You can't control if they're going to yell at you and tell you to screw off. But what you can control is how you react. You can control how polite you are. You can control your mannerism, how you approach the conversation. So that's really more for the newer agents. For the experienced agents, it's really about, market knowledge and expertise. It's doing the work. It's actually going in and, connecting the landlords with the vendors and helping push the conversation along with them and trying to get quotes and negotiating it down and understanding every aspect of the deal, understanding all of the lease terms, reading through the lease, not just passing it off to an attorney, but understanding what it is yourself as well, which is a pain in the butt, right? But in order for you to be a good broker, you have to understand what's being negotiated, what's important for a tenant, what's important for a landlord, and then marrying those concepts together and putting the whole package together as one. That's really what you need to do. You have to be able to put into work.
yeah, it's like anything else. In real estate too, you got to do the same thing. You got to talk to people. You got to fill a pipeline. You got to get them what they want. You got to be brutally honest. Right. So it's just a different product. It's the same type of thing, right? You still got to talk to people. How did you build your network of people?
Well, first and foremost was cold calling, right? It's just picking up the phone and calling. But we also organically databased everything. So we pulled out all of the properties that were in our market. We found out what entities own those properties. We found out who owns those entities. And then we found out what their phone numbers are. And it's all public information. And if you have the right tools, even free ones, you can figure that all out. And then truly, Rick, line by line, we have gone in ourselves and added that information into a spreadsheet. And then we go down that list every quarter and make the phone calls and find out, is this number correct for this individual? Is this even the right individual? There's so much that goes into the databasing and prospect part of it. And it's difficult the first time around. But once you have that list cleaned, now the second time you go through it, that second quarter, for example, you know that this is the number with this person because you connected with them before. And so a lot of it is just organic outreach. A lot of times now, as we're starting to get listings, then we use the listings to try and get more activity. So we're marketing it out online. We're paying for subscriptions off of, websites like CoStar and LoopNet and Crexy and Land.com. There's so many different tech avenues that we can take to promote the products. And then we also do email blasts. So we, aggregate email addresses organically also. We don't buy email addresses. We want to keep it as natural as possible so our unsubscribe rate isn't very high. And so people that look at our emails are actually interested in them. So for example, for us, we have a 30% open rate on almost all of our emails. And when we send it a second time, so we send our first emails on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. On Thursdays, we send a second email to everyone that didn't open up the first one, and we get typically another 15% that opens. So on average, for every email that we send, we get almost half of our database that's looking at it. Those are really good numbers, and it's because we've grown it organically, right? We've gotten buy-in from many of the people that we have pulled emails through, right? Not everybody, but you have to try to grow the business too, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of it in mailers too. You have to hit every single marketing aspect. So it's got to be phone calls, it's got to be mailers, it's got to be email blast, and then you can't sleep on actually going and knocking on the doors. And so for every listing that we have, we go around the immediate area, knock on the doors with flyers, and say, "Hey, this is new. Did you know about this?" Or, "Hey, let me tell you more about this. How can we help you as well?" So it's really grown organically. And when you do a good job, then the referrals start to come into, word of mouth starts to happen. People start to talk that, "Hey, I'm working with this agent who's really, really good. I recommend him to you as well." And so we're starting to see that kind of momentum. And I think that that's really important for people to realize that this is not a 1 or 2 year game, right? This is a 10, 20-year game. So you have to think very, very far ahead. You can't be focused on trying to make the money now. You have to focus on doing good. You have to focus on creating a good brand. You have to focus on good service. And so for us, even at this stage, Rick, we're not heavily focused on prospecting constantly. Right now, we're focused on whatever deals we have in front of us. We want to execute as perfectly as we possibly can. We don't want to fall behind on communication, because a lot of times the bigger groups that aren't the boutique shops that have a ton of incoming work, there's only so much time in the day, right? And there's only so much time that you can give. So we're trying to focus on a small group of people, execute very, very, very well, build a good brand slowly and naturally, and have good enough service that people will want to pass us on.
No, that's great, and it's really, customer service, the golden rule, fiduciary responsibility, whatever you want to call it, is probably one of the best forms of prospecting too. Because when you do a great job, they tell people, right? When you were talking, it reminded me when I was back in New England. I sold I think it was a 13 unit with a convenience store in it.
Oh,
Very, very common, right? So
mixed
I
use.
use what's that?
Mixed use.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very common to have whole neighborhoods like that where you have, three or four or five of those. So what I did was, once I sold it, I called everybody else that owned one like it and did basically the just sold call. "Hey, I just sold a 13 unit, had a blah, 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 blah. How about you? You ever thought about selling yours?" Right. And I actually did pretty well doing that. It's the same thing in residential. Everything you're saying, like you're doing the just listed. "Hey, we just listed this new property in your area. Hey, we just sold this." So it gives you things to talk about too as you're going through it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It makes the cold call a little bit warmer, which is nice, because cold calls are tough. When you have nothing of value to present to the person on the other line, why would they want to talk to you? And so that's where the market knowledge needs to come in and the expertise comes in. But if you have listings, if you have activity, then activity breeds activity, right? Then you can
Right.
use that in order to get more. Use the listings as bait to get more listings. So,
Yep. And that's what you were talking about when we started the call, my man. Momentum. You are in the momentum. All right.
yeah,
Momentum for mo money.
I'm definitely swimming upstream right now. That's for sure.
That's good. Congratulations. It's so good because
Thank
every
you.
time we talk, and we've done this before, it just seems
Yeah,
like you're busier and busier. You're doing a greater job. And the market hasn't gotten better. I think it will next
that's
year,
true.
but the market is, you've gotten busier and you're doing more. And I checked the production report before we start. You guys are doing great. So awesome, my man. Pleasure. I'm really glad you took some time out. Any final words you want to leave these lovely people today?
Just keep grinding. You have to have grit in this business, especially if you're an agent watching this, then just stay consistent, keep going. Now is not the time to take the foot off the pedal, right? Even through the holidays, sometimes this is the best time to put the foot on the gas, because other agents are not. And so this is a good way for you to differentiate yourself, is that you're available, you're taking calls, you're doing the work when everyone else is not. And then for people that are watching this that aren't in the real estate game, if you ever have questions about the real estate game, you're welcome to contact myself or Rick. We're happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. All right, Ophir. As I always, hey, I really appreciate you taking your time out. You guys are doing a
Always.
tremendous job. You're an inspiration. Keep it rocking, my man. And thanks for
Thank
taking your
you.
time out today. I really appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Ophir. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.